Something's missing. Something's missing with this kid. This kid talks. He runs his mouth like I could be a starting quarterback with his arms crossed like this. Get your ass in the front row and study and do all that. If I know, the whole league knows. Quit being an embarrassment that way. You got the talent to be the quarterback.
This is what the NFL world is hiding from you. But last night's football exposed it. Pride goes down faster than a busted coverage. Rex Ryan fired off a hot take. The internet sharpened its knives. And then Shedeur stepped onto the field like he had the delete button for disasters. What followed looked less like a game and more like a public apology written in touchdowns. By the end, even Rex was nodding like a man rereading his own bad tweet.
Something there just doesn't seem right, Rex.
No, 100% it doesn't seem right. And look, here's the thing, and is it the kid, or is it how you have treated this guy? Like, I don't know where the fine line is, but there's, certainly a disconnect. Like, when I see, like, this kid on the bench, this is after the game. Number one, it's not the 7th game of the World Series. You lost a game that nobody cares about.
If you're enjoying, please subscribe Shedeur Sanders to the channel. It helps more than you think. The moment the remark floated into the sports universe, it didn't land gently. It dropped like a lit match into a fireworks factory. Rex had spoken with the confidence of a man who believed gravity only applied to other people. And for a brief, foolish stretch of time, it looked like the take might survive.
We don't care, Rex. Stay on that side. We don't care, Rex. Stay on that side. Stay on that side. Stop trying to nitpick and call out Shedeur as if he is doing or saying anything that hasn't been done previously in the NFL. If he is doing something outside of what normally is happening in the NFL, we will say, let's listen to you. But if you were to a point where you were nitpicking and you were saying things that are not different than anybody else, we not listening to you today.
Then Shedeur walked onto the field and turned that entire narrative into confetti. It didn't feel like football at first. It felt like a public experiment in instant karma. The ball snapped, the pocket formed, and suddenly the air was heavy with the sound of expectations being rearranged.
And by the way, Lamar Jackson, a two-time MVP, was looking for you. Like, go back in there, visit with Lamar or whatever, and then go back in with your teammate. Why is there such a disconnect here? Is it the kid's fault? Is it the organization's fault? I have no idea, all right? But I am going to say this. The only energy I saw in the entire stadium was when that kid popped on the field.
Right.
When Shedeur walked on the field, you know who was wanting to see him play?
Fans.
The dang fans. What the hell is going on in Cleveland? Yeah. What is going on in Cleveland?
Shedeur moved like someone who had already watched the ending and decided to speedrun to the good part. Every throw looked like it carried a personal message. Every read felt calculated, calm, almost bored with the idea of struggle.
Talk about why he is saying this. Because some people say, hey man, you ain't got to say it the way that they want you to say it. You ain't got to say what they want to hear. You say what you feeling. But it's so revealing and it's so telling when you talk like Shedeur talked pre-game and post-game. Let me tell you why. It's not because he's insecure or not. It's not because he's cocky or not. It's not because he's confident or not. Not because he's arrogant or not. It's because we all are lifting this water up this hill. And by relationship.
It was the kind of performance that doesn't just win games. It edits earlier opinions out of existence. Somewhere off the field, timelines froze mid-scroll. The same people who had been recycling the remark 24 hours earlier, like it was gospel, suddenly discovered their delete buttons had mysteriously vanished. Sports radio producers began sweating through their suits. The take had escaped the studio. It was now loose on a live football field, and Shedeur was sprinting after it with a high completion rate. The defense tried to pretend this was all part of the plan. They widened their stances. They shifted coverages. The scoreboard began to glow with the kind of numbers that make analysts suddenly remember they own stock in humility. Back in the ecosystem of sports commentary, the mood shifted from loud certainty to uncomfortable throat clearing. The remark that once strutted around like an undefeated opinion now looked like it needed a witness protection program. The performance on the field wasn't just beating a defense. It was cross-examining a narrative.
I have a little beef to pick with Rex Ryan after what he said about Shedeur Sanders. He is in no position to talk about Shedeur Sanders. Okay, Rex Ryan has now had multiple chances to be successful in the NFL, and he blew it. He should have been in the film room longer. He is the laughingstock. Okay, when he was with the New York Jets, his entire career was marked by the butt fumble. And then he comes with the Bills. He comes in, says he's going to win the Super Bowl, tries to get the entire city behind him, and he absolutely flopped on his face.
Shedeur didn't celebrate like a man proving a point. That was the wild part. No chest thumping, no dramatic stare into the camera, no invisible debates acted out in end zone pantomime. He celebrated like a player who already knew this was going to happen and found the whole thing slightly predictable. That quiet confidence made the whole situation even louder. The game rolled on, and the humiliation intensified in that clean, professional way that makes it impossible to accuse anyone of being petty. Touchdown drives are stacked like unanswered emails. Third downs converted with the casual efficiency of a man returning library books. Panel quietly added the word context into their planning documents. Then came the second half, because of course it did. And that's when the performance crossed the line from statement to sermon. Shedeur adjusted nothing. The defense adjusted everything. The result was the same. A read, a release, a strike, rinse, repeat. The ball moved like it was on rails. The receivers looked like they were arriving at spots they had already rented in advance.
It's just by what I do, we all don't get credit, but we all want to feel loved. We all want to feel credit. So in a team dynamic, especially the NFL, the offensive linemen know the only time they hear their name is when something bad happens, right? Legal procedure number 75, Winston-Salem, repeat first down, right? That's the only time we're going to say your name or number is when you mess up. So when you do something in football, the ultimate team sport, more moving parts than any other sport, you gotta make sure you show love to those who nobody else is gonna even notice.
Every successful drive felt less like an offensive series and more like a paragraph in a long, very detailed correction letter. The kind you send when someone confidently misunderstood everything and needs to be gently, repeatedly shown where they went wrong. Somewhere in the middle of all this, silence began to do what shouting previously had. The louder shatter stat line grew, the quieter the earlier commentary became. It was the kind of silence that only forms when an argument realizes it lost without requiring a verdict. By the time the final minutes ticked down, the scoreboard wasn't just reporting what happened on the field. It was summarizing a philosophical transformation. The difference between speculation and evidence stood illuminated in giant numbers. That uniquely awkward atmosphere where everyone pretends they always believed the same thing. Supporters appeared out of nowhere with historical revisionist energy. Skeptics rediscovered nuance like it had just been invented. And then Rex surfaced again, not with fireworks this time, but with the tone of a man who had just watched his own certainty get escorted out of the building by reality. The shift was subtle, yet unmistakable. The bravado softened. The posture of unshakable judgment bent into something that looked suspiciously like reconsideration.
This might be the backpedal of the century. I don't know what made you have a change of heart. Could it be that the whole world called you out because you lied?
Get your ass in the front row and study and do all that. If I know, the whole league knows.
And then all of a sudden, you want to see him on the field. And he has so much talent. And he's being treated so unfairly. And the locker room is toxic. And no one knows what they're doing on the Browns. Just a week ago, he was a bratty kid that just had his arms folded and was just like, I should be.
There was no dramatic collapse, no public groveling. Just the quiet acceptance that the field had spoken in a louder language than commentary ever could. The kind of acceptance that arrives when the film doesn't care about your expectations. What made it even more astonishing was how clean the reversal felt. No excuses stretched thin. No escape hatches disguised as explanations. Just the kind of acknowledgement that only appears when denial is no longer structurally sound. Sports rarely provide moments of such surgical irony. Usually, everything gets buried in chaos. This time it unfolded with textbook clarity. A claim was made. A performance answered it. The answer was graded in real time. Shedeur, for his part, remained untouched by the tornado of discourse swirling around his name. The funniest part wasn't even the acceptance itself. It was the way the acceptance quietly rewrote the past 12 hours of sports media like a software update. All the same people, all the same platforms, completely different tone. Overnight software patched to reality. 2.0 segment.
I'm watching Get Up this morning, and Rex Ryan, I'm locked in on you. I'm locked in, okay? I don't care about none of y'all's analysis of the other games and, who played yesterday and all that. I don't care, okay? I want to see what Rex Ryan got to say today, all right? I want to see what Rex Ryan has to say about Shedeur and how he played last night. That's all I care about, all right? That should have been the first thing y'all discussed this morning, especially since Rex Ryan there. So I'm locked in, Rex. I'm locked in. I want to hear what you got to say.
Segments that would have once been confidently dissecting presumed limits were suddenly celebrating upside down. The same words were used, but the energy had flipped. It was like watching a room full of people slowly realize the chair they were leaning on had been removed 9 hours ago. And somewhere beneath it all sat that original remark, now stripped of its thunder. Reduced to a footnote that accidentally predicted its own obsolescence. Shedeur's stat line, meanwhile, stood there like courtroom evidence. No quirks, no asterisks. Just numbers that didn't blink when challenged. Every attempt to minimize them collapsed under the simplest rewatch of the tape. The throws weren't lucky. They were on time. The reads weren't risky. They were correct. The movement wasn't frantic. And narrative pressure has a way of exposing cracks. It found none. The defense threw everything it had into mixing coverage, rotating late, sending pressure from unexpected angles. Shedeur treated it like a quiz he had already taken in warm-ups. The blitzes came. The answers left faster. The coverage shifted. The ball was already elsewhere. It was football as translation. The defense spoke in disguise. Shedeur replied in clarity.
Why everybody is switching up so much? Could it be Dylan Gabriel's not that good? All of y'all are coaches or players. Y'all see what's going on. Y'all know good football when you see it too. And you know bad football when you see it. And you know mediocre football when you see it. I'm glad you came back to your senses. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. But amazing backpedal. Cleveland could use you because them corners are quite trash.
Each drive that ended in points felt like another paragraph in Rex's evolving realization. Not anger. Not denial. Just the slow, unavoidable recognition that the field had escalated past opinion. Fans feasted on it with wild enthusiasm. The comment sections turned into gladiator arenas where screenshots were wielded like ancient weapons. Receipts were displayed with museum-grade preservation. It wasn't even mean-spirited anymore. It was recreational accountability. By the time Rex's acceptance hit the airwaves, it arrived not as a shock, but as the only remaining logical move. Resistance would have looked surreal. The numbers were already too loud. The film was already too sharp. Shedeur didn't ask for vindication. He engineered it in spirals. From that moment forward, the narrative recalibrated. Not because anyone issued a formal correction, but because it became mathematically irresponsible not to. The performance was too decisive to reinterpret. You could argue philosophy all day. The scoreboard would still be standing there like a bouncer. Rex's acceptance wasn't framed as surrender. It sounded more like the quiet clarity that arrives when stubbornness runs out of room to hide. A man adjusting his mental furniture after the house was rearranged by force.
Talk your Shedeur. Let's go. My dog goes in, gets his first start, gets his first dub. Let's go, man. The 45th starting QB for the Browns since 1994. First Browns QB to win in his first official start since 1995.
Yeah.
Cleveland's been waiting for this. We've been waiting for this.
I cannot wait to watch this week. That is for damn sure.
What made the whole situation irresistible wasn't just that someone had been proven wrong. That happens every week. It was how cleanly it happened. No injuries to blame. No weather to point at. No controversial calls to lean on. Just execution versus assumption. It was narrative versus reality, and reality didn't even need dramatic music. As the days passed, the clips aged into legend. New fans discover them like archaeological artifacts from the previous cycle of discourse. Analysts pretended the original remark was a minor footnote they had never taken too seriously anyway. History began its favorite hobby, editing tone. But the sequence remained intact in the digital bloodstream. Remark. Performance. He moved into the next week like a man who had merely cleared his inbox. The spectacle wasn't his burden to carry. It was everyone else's to process. Meanwhile, Rex's pivot settled into the larger ecosystem of sports television as a case study in adaptive survival. You can double down and become a meme, or you can adjust and stay employed. Acceptance in this case was not just humility, it was a strategy. The audience noticed. They always do.
Shedeur is catching more flack because he decided to imitate a mime when asked about, Rex Ryan's comments about him not being, I guess, mature. And he's not, necessarily prioritizing football. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was pretty funny. It was, because it's like, at this point in time, what exactly do you want from me? What exactly? He's literally saying nothing.
The shift from certainty to respect reset the dynamic. It didn't erase the remark. It placed it into context where it finally made sense, as the setup to a better story. A lesser performance would have produced arguments. A lesser performance would have spawned debates, caveats, heated panels, and split-screen shouting matches. This one dissolved all that. It was too definitive to argue with and too elegant to cheapen. Shedeur didn't humiliate with theatrics. He was humiliated with timing. Even the opposing sideline seemed to feel it by the fourth quarter. The defensive adjustments lost their urgency. The play calls took on a tone of damage control rather than ambition. The posture of containment replaced the ambition of conquest. That's when you know a performance has crossed into dominion. When the opponent stops trying to win the argument and starts trying to survive it. Through it all, one fact refused to blur. The performance stood on its own. It didn't need embellishment. It didn't require protection. It didn't invite dismissal. And Rex's acceptance kept echoing through the reactions as the quiet epilogue to a very loud chapter. Not as an apology tour, but as a recalibration. A man stepping back from the ledge of his own prediction. The story,
which I thought was really good. So I'm going to steal. In one game, Shedeur showed them more than they had seen really in any of the games with Gabriel, right?
100%.
And that's not a shot at Gabriel. It's just the reality of it. They had at least a big play. It wasn't like he was out of this world. Like he was like 11 for 20 or something like that. Didn't have amazing stats, but he made a couple big plays. And for a first start, won him the game and had some pretty good success. So now we get to see it again. The Shedeur Sanders experience against the San Francisco 49ers.
The story migrated from mockery to lesson without losing its humor. Because embedded inside all of it was the most dangerous joke in sports. The belief that certainty survives contact with the field. Weeks from now, people will remember the throws, the stat line, the glow of the scoreboard. Fewer will remember the exact phrasing of the remark that started it all. That's always how it goes. Performance has a longer shelf life than confidence, but the sequence will be remembered. The arc of it. The punctuation mark that confirmed the sentence had already been written between the first snap and the final whistle. And somewhere in the background of all this, the unspoken rule of football smiled knowingly. You may borrow certainty for a moment, but you always have to pay it back with interest.